As we get closer and closer to fall, I feel like it's the perfect time to talk about Gilmore Girls. For many, this is a comfort show, one that you watch and repeat every autumn. But as you dive deeper into the show past season 3, you start to realize this cozy show has some cracks in it. If you're unfamiliar with the show Gilmore Girls, here's a quick synopsis of the plot. The series centers around the close relationship between Lorelai Gilmore and her daughter Rory as they navigate life, relationships, and family in the small town of Stars Hollow. The story begins when Rory is accepted into Chilton, a prestigious preparatory school. To pay the tuition, Lorelai, who became a mother as a teenager and has been raising Rory largely on her own, is forced to reconnect with her wealthy, estranged parents. Within this world, Rory quickly emerges as the beloved jewel of Stars Hollow. Growing up with a teen mother in a close-knit town and largely cut off from her extended family, Rory forms deep bonds with the townspeople who in many ways become her chosen family. She's adored not only for her kindness, but especially for her natural academic charm. Teachers, friends, and most significantly, Lorelai and her grandparents continually reinforce the idea of Rory's exceptionalism, and as a result, she becomes synonymous with good grades, book smarts, and effortless academic success. She is driven by her goal to attend Harvard and to become a journalist, and takes all the right steps towards that path, joining a preparatory school, studying diligently, and eventually being accepted into 3 Ivy Leagues, both Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. Rory, ultimately choosing to attend Yale, steps into her new university life with the same drive and determination she had in her teenage years. But as the show progresses, Rory's likability and determination starts to dwindle. She abruptly drops out of Yale, steals a boat, goes to jail, and repeatedly finds herself in unhealthy affairs. How did Rory, a girl who seemed to have it all figured out, fall down a path that led to these actions? Moreover, how did Rory Gilmore's downfall start? As unlikable as Rory becomes in later seasons to some, her behavior is not entirely her fault, nor is it entirely unrealistic that her life panned out like this. Rory is in many ways the personification of the gifted kid, a child praised for her intelligence from a young age, told she could achieve anything, and treated as exceptional rather than simply hardworking. The problem is that gifted children who coast through their early years often never develop the patience or resilience needed to handle setbacks. Their identity becomes directly tied to succeeding effortlessly, so when they finally face real challenges, their confidence crumbles instead of adapting. For Rory, this plays out in a very personal way. When she falters, it's not just about the setback itself, but about the fear that maybe she was never as exceptional as everyone led her to believe. And you can see the results of this start as early as Chilton in the episode Dear Hunters, when Rory gets her first D, crams obsessively, and then a chain of events causes her to miss a test with 20% of her grade, leading to her meltdown. Rory's panic makes sense when you tie it back to how gifted kids often tie their identity and self-worth to academic success. Up until now, school had always come easy. Coming from a less competitive environment, she was used to being at the top without having to struggle. More importantly, she was never praised for her persistence or effort, but instead for her natural-born intelligence. Over time, this would reinforce a fixed mindset, where Rory's sense of identity became tied to being naturally intelligent, leading her to believe that her abilities were static, that she either had it or she didn't. That meant when she eventually failed, it wasn't just about a bad grade, it felt like a direct attack on who she was, rather than seeing failure as an opportunity to learn and improve. This mindset would make her unable to handle criticism. We can see this at Chilton, later at Yale, and finally, most dramatically, with Mincham. During Rory's freshman year at Yale, when she's told to drop a class she's struggling in by a professor, Rory seems taken back and offended at the suggestion. And this moment serves as a crucial early indicator of the challenges that stem from her gifted kid mindset. Having been the top student for so long and even overcoming the initial academic hurdle at Chilton, the idea that she might be struggling, let alone require dropping a class, is a significant blow to her self-perception as a naturally brilliant student. Instead of dealing with the situation with perspective, Rory breaks down, crying to Dean about feeling like a failure and that her whole world is collapsing. This over-the-top reaction highlights how little adversity she's truly faced and how poorly equipped she is to cope with even a minor academic setback. Her reaction reveals a subconscious belief that things, especially academics, should continue to come easily. When her professor attempts to normalize this experience by explaining that everyone struggles at Yale, she flippantly replies, "Glad to be fitting in." This sarcastic comment is a powerful illustration of the gifted kid syndrome at play. It shows a student who, despite being genuinely intelligent, has not developed the humility or resilience needed to accept that struggle is a normal and even necessary part of growth, especially in a demanding environment like Yale. Her reaction suggests a belief that if something is difficult for her, the system or the advice must be flawed, rather than recognizing that she she is simply facing the common challenges of a rigorous education. This mindset, unfortunately, will indeed plague her in her future career struggles, making it harder for her to accept criticism, adapt to unforeseen obstacles, and ultimately reach her full potential. On top of struggling academically, Rory is also having trouble settling into her life away from Stars Hollow. She doesn't have a strong social connection with her peers and roommates, and she feels homesick and disconnected from the security of Stars Hollow and her close relationship with Lorelai. Feeling overwhelmed by the challenges and changes at Yale, Rory seeks comfort in the past and tries to revert back to her idealized Stars Hollow life by starting an affair with her ex-high school boyfriend, Dean. Dean at this time is also struggling. He impulsively married Lindsay shortly after Rory left for Yale, and it's quickly becoming clear that the marriage isn't working out. He still carries strong feelings for Rory, and his unhappiness coupled with Rory's vulnerability creates the context for their affair. Rory's reaction declaring,
"He's not a married guy. He's Dean, my Dean,"
when ultimately confronted by Lorelai about the affair, highlights her desperate attempt to cling to the security of her past. It also shows how, in doing so, she often disregards the feelings of others in the pursuit of validating her own. If Dean represented the comfort of Rory's past, Mitchum Huntsberger represents the harsh realities of her future. As the show unfolds, Rory lands an internship with Logan's father, Mitchum. After working there for some time, he blatantly informs Rory that she does not have what it takes to be a journalist. This moment is vital because it's one of the first times Rory has had someone directly tell her she is not good enough in quite a blunt way. Up until this point, Rory had been cushioned by her mother, her small town, and constant praise that fed her perfectionism. Rory grew up believing in an idealized version of herself, but without ever building the resilience, humility, or emotional intelligence needed to face failure. Her desperation to meet the expectations of everyone around her, including herself, ultimately led to her breakdown when Mitchum voiced her biggest fear that had been building up all along ever since she enrolled in Chilton: that she wasn't good enough. Although many may hate Mitchum for what he said to Rory, if we're being honest, he wasn't entirely wrong. Instead of proving Mitchum wrong and doubling down on her ambitions, Rory instead ends up spiraling out of control. She makes the decision to end her internship and drop out of Yale and steals a boat with the help of Logan, which subsequently leads to her arrest. For Rory, the yacht that she stole represents a literal and figurative escape from the reality of her failure. By taking to the sea and creating a dramatic diversion, she is able to avoid confronting the pain of Mitchum's criticism and the crushing weight of her own expectations. In giving up so easily, Rory proved Mitchum right. Journalism is a field built on criticism, and if one opinion was enough to shatter her confidence, then her foundation was never strong to begin with. Rory, with no place to go after arguing with her mother about her decision to leave Yale, finds refuge in her wealthy grandparents' pool house while she completes community service and figures her life out. During this time, she joins the DAR, not out of genuine interest, but as a way to cling to validation and an external identity after her role as the perfect student was shaken. The DAR offers a safe, structured, and performative identity that demands little of her real self, allowing her to avoid confronting the anxieties about her future. For a while, Rory becomes the ideal person her grandparents always hoped Lorelai would be, and finds temporary comfort and purpose in that role. Rory remains in this limbo until she runs into her ex-boyfriend, Jess. During their relationship, he always knew of her big dreams and believed in them. So when he finds out that school-obsessed Rory had dropped out of Yale, he's stunned and delivers one of the show's most iconic lines.
"Living at your grandparents' place? Being in the DAR? No, Yale. Why did you drop out of Yale?"
Jess is the only person in Rory's life at that moment who doesn't soften the truth. It's this confrontation that pushes Rory back on track, and she returns to Yale after a semester away. And although this may seem like Rory growing, her decision isn't really character growth, it's validation. Rory doesn't rediscover a new sense of self or purpose on her own. She needs someone to tell her she's better than her current situation. Her return to Yale isn't a triumph of inner resolve, but rather another example of Rory outsourcing her identity from others. Jess's disappointment gives her permission to reclaim the role of the diligent student, but it still isn't self-driven. The effects of Rory's gifted mindset will weigh on her entire life. In the spin-off series Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life, viewers see that her struggles with handling failure and criticism were never fully resolved, only temporarily pushed aside after Jess's intervention got her back on track. By her 30s, Rory faces a similar identity crisis. She never had the big breakthrough in journalism that everyone, including herself, expected. Instead, she finds herself moving back into her mother's house, freelancing for her small-town paper, and caught in an affair with her engaged college ex-boyfriend while still in a relationship herself. For many fans, this version of Rory was a disappointment. She was supposed to become the globe-trotting journalist she dreamed of, not someone who stumbled through adulthood in a haze of missed opportunities. opportunities. But her imperfect trajectory wasn't an accident. It was what Amy Sherman Palladino, the show's creator, had always envisioned. Sherman Palladino often explored the pitfalls of the gifted kid complex, and her original ending for the original show would have mirrored Lorelai's story, Rory unintentionally becoming pregnant right after college. Though she didn't stay with the series through its final season, she made sure that Rory's mistakes were woven throughout her college years. Rory was meant to fail. She was meant to contradict the academic glow that once defined her, and that choice serves as a sobering reminder. Even the most carefully planned lives can unravel. Rory may have not become a world-renowned journalist, but so what? Maybe her failure to live up to expectations isn't failure at all, but rather a rejection of the idea that success is defined by prestige. Maybe imperfection is the point, that her worth, like ours, was never meant to be measured by accolades. Because in the end, Rory's story isn't just about wasted potential, it's about the dangers of tying our identities to perfection, and the freedom that comes from letting it go. By the end of A Year in the Life, we discover that Rory is unexpectedly pregnant, and perhaps the new chapter will finally teach Rory what success and self-worth really mean to her. So what do you think? Do you think Rory's downfall was caused by her entitlement, her giftedness, or maybe it wasn't a downfall at all? Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like and subscribe.